All right, so for a very basic explanation of your multiplier, the money multiplier, all right? Now, the multiplier is when a certain injection of money into our economy multiplies itself over again within our economy. Remember, we said that the government was a separate entity from our economy. And we said when they spent money into our economy, it was seen as an injection. Okay? Now, when there is an injection of money into our economy, the final impact of that injection into our economy is far greater than the initial injection because that money is spent over and over again. Okay? And that spending money over and over again becomes what we call the multiplier. Okay? Now, the multiplier is facilitated by the commercial banks. It works through the commercial banks. All right? So, here's your government, and they spend 100 Rand into our economy. Okay? They give that money to F&B. Now, FNB's now got that 100 Rand, which they are going to loan out. How do banks make money? They loan money and they make an interest rate. So they are incentivized to loan as much money as possible. Okay? Now, there is a stipulation by the South African Reserve Bank called the reserve requirement. South African Reserve Bank says that commercial banks need to keep back at least 2.5% of their money. Okay? So FNB, by the reserve requirement, would have to keep back 2.5% of that 100 Rand, which is 2.50 Rand. And they can loan out the remainder of that money, which is 97.50 Rand. Okay, so they've got 97.50 Rand, which they can loan out. Okay, so they loan that money out to that guy, 97.50 Rand. He goes out and purchases some product. He buys whatever, a bicycle for 97.50 Rand. And what does the shop owner do? He takes that money and he deposits it into his own account. Okay? So that 97.50 Rand will enter the financial system again, Standard Bank, as 97.50. Now, Standard Bank is also required to hold back 2.5% of that money. Okay? So just for simplicity's sake, I'm not going to use 2.5%. I'm just going to keep it at 2.50 Rand. Okay? But it is 2.5%. So they're going to keep back their own 2.50 Rand, and they've got exactly 95 Rand that they can loan out to the next person. He deposits it into ABSA. And ABSA needs to keep 2.50 Rand, and they can loan out 92.50 Rand, which they do. To this guy. Okay. Who then also makes some sort of a purchase, and that money finds its way back into FNB. Okay. Again, they have to keep 2.50 Rand. Let's assume now that FNB, once they've got this 92.50 Rand, they say to themselves, okay, let's keep a little bit extra. Let's not only keep the 2.50 Rand, let's keep an additional 20 Rand for something else. Okay? So they keep not only 2.50 Rand, but they keep an additional 20 Rand for something else. So what that means is now instead of having 90 Rand to lend out, they've only got 70 Rand, which they lend to the next person because they keep that 20 Rand back. Okay? Now, this guy's got 70 Rand, which he can spend and it will wind its way back into another bank. Or what he does is he's saving some cash. He's saving up for his big screen TV, which costs him 100 grand. So slowly but surely he's saving money every month in the form of cash. He's got a safe at home, so he keeps cash back. He's going to keep back 30 Rand. So what he does is he spends the remaining 40 Rand, which ultimately lands back into one of the banks, Standard Bank. Again, they need to keep 2.50 Rand. And they can loan out that 40 Rand. Okay, so this is the money multiplier process. Why? Because, how does this work? All right? The government deposited 100 Rand with FNB. Okay? So FNB owes the government 100 Rand. All right? They loaned out money to the first guy over here who did something with it, and it wound its way back into Standard Bank. Okay? So this guy owes 97 Rand 50 to FNB. Okay? This guy owes 95 Rand to Standard Bank. This guy owes 92 Rand. This guy owes 70 Rand. So do you see how this 100 Rand injection into our economy is now worth 100 plus 97.50 plus 95 plus 92.50 plus 70 plus if we had carried on. Okay. So that 100 Rand that was injected into our economy is now worth a whole lot more money within our economy because it was used over and over again within our economy. Okay. Now there's a couple of things that the multiplier depends on. Firstly, you can see with every single round, the 2.5%, or in our case, the 2.50 Rand, decreased the size of the multiplier. Because with each time the money was lent, there was a smaller amount of money to lend. Do you agree? Okay. So the reserve requirement has a negative relationship with the money multiplier. If the reserve requirement increased from 2.5% to 5%, there would have been less money to lend at each stage. Okay. So the first thing that the multiplier depends on is your reserve requirement. The second thing that your multiplier depends on is your excess reserves. So what did we say? At this stage, FNB said, let's keep an additional 20 Rand in case we want to use it for something else. And suddenly, the multiplier was drastically reduced at this stage over here. Then again, the multiplier was again drastically reduced at this stage here because this guy kept 30 Rand back in cash. So the three things that would depend or determine the size of the multiplier: number one, your reserve requirement; number two, your excess reserves; and number three, your currency. Okay. Reserve requirement, excess reserves ratio, or currency ratio all affect the size of the multiplier. Okay.